to the interest group for evaluation of research within RDA. Really happy to have you here. It is a small but hopefully mighty group, and which I certainly hope will lend itself to some really interesting and deeper discussions than we often get an opportunity for in some of these settings. So I look forward to that. At the same time, this is an RDA plenary. So if you're like, interesting, but I also wanted to go to this session that's at the exact same time and you need to hop out to go over there, go ahead. You do that. You do whatever you need to do. I completely understand. And the session, as we've already heard, is being recorded, so you can always come back to it for whatever tasty bits of discussion you might have missed. So with that, as we've posted a couple times in chat, there are notes that you can sign into. Please sign into them, sign your name, indicate that you were at one point interested in this session. You can also see the slides link is in there along with a couple of other things. So please take a look at that. My name is Amy Nürnberger. I'm at MIT. I am one of the co-chairs of this group. With me tonight are two of my other lovely co-chairs, Francois Genova and Emma Crott. So they will be helping out with color commentary and some note taking and some slide sharing, and we're going to have a good time thinking in depth about this area of evaluation of research, taking a look at what's been done, how we're going forward, and where we're looking to the community to really extend, expand, and enrich this conversation. So with that, Francois, could I please ask you to share your screen and start us off on the slides?
Yes, ma'am. So here it is. You see it?
Looking good. Thank you. So in case you didn't know where you were, once again, this is the evaluation of research. And today we're really focusing on what is the RDA's role in this space. Next. So within the RDA, we have guiding principles that we are thinking about within this setting as well, which I'm sure you're familiar with. This is just a quick reminder of what those are so we can keep them in mind. Next slide is where we share all of the links that we have already shared in chat. So moving on. What we're actually talking about today is we're going to do a quick review of the, why this group exists, what this group has been doing over the past time since the last plenary, what we've achieved, what we've been thinking about, who we've been talking to. We'll have a longer presentation around some of the work that the group has done in terms of the RDA's role in that document, as well as connecting it to other efforts in this space. And then discuss what are the next steps, what do we hope to get done before the next plenary. Any questions about that agenda or things that you would like to add at this point, things you would like to hear of? And please feel free to raise your hand or put something in chat, and so we'll see those.
Amy, that sounds really clear. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Laura. Okay, let's move on. So we're going to take a look at reviewing the aims of the interest groups and its recent activities. So for the next slide, it shows the overall objectives of this interest group. And we're looking really at the foundation of it is to create a space within RDA as a place of meeting and connection where we can advocate together for this idea that fair data and software are first-class research outputs that need to be represented and considered in that way within the research evaluation frameworks that we all interact with in different ways. And one of the major objectives here is to take a look across, first of all, RDA, what are all the RDA efforts that connect into this space, and then also provide a space for the the international, the global efforts around evaluation of research to connect and converse with each other, because we know that the different facets around evaluation of research can happen at so many different levels, and certainly levels that aren't exclusive of each other. They merge in, really more than 3 dimensions, so multidimensional ones. Images are definitely part of research outputs and research data in all sorts of ways. So thinking about those things. So we are taking those broad interpretation about what research data might encompass, as well as research software, and thinking about that really broader space of all of the things that research outputs beyond the traditional article or procedure publications that we've primarily used for a large part in the evaluation of research tradition.
If I can make just a comment here, I am an astronomer. For me, conceptualizing a new instrument to observe the sky is a research output too. So there is a wide range of possible outputs.
Thank you, Francoise, for that. So for this group, we started in plenary 19 as a birds of a feather to sense community interest, continued that for plenary 20. And then in June of 2023, we submitted the charter and were approved by council, became a real live interest group. We held our first stakeholder forum in September of 2023. The stakeholder forum within this interest group being a unique feature of the interest group, where it provides that space for stakeholders both within RDA as well as external RDA, other stakeholders who have interests, who have conversations, who are building efforts in these spaces, to come together and see what others are working on and have some of those conversations around us. And then in plenary 21, we had the interest group kickoff meeting. Excuse me. If you're interested in taking a look at any of those notes, you can. I'm sorry, I have to. I've been watching Francoise have allergies, and I'm just getting the same through the Zoom window itself. The power of suggestion. So moving on in our evolution of a group, we started to draft our first output, and this was really focusing on the role of RDA. What are the meaningful roles that RDA and RDA participants can have in this landscape? And that's one of the draft documents that we'll be presenting and seeking for your feedback on as part of this session. And then also, while we had a conversation in P21 about the utility of collecting use cases around what successful evaluations that include these research outputs beyond the article or in addition to the article look like, that work has stalled for the time being due to bandwidth and support and some things like that. So that's where we are right now. And then some of the things that we did just before this plenary included, we have the meetings in between the plenaries for the interest group. So at our most recent one, we had a presentation about Kawara and its working groups, as well as some of the work being done by the RDA Shark group, the Sharing Rewards and Credit interest group there. And then we've also been working or taking a look at the quality indicators for data and software products that by Doris Strange, and I would really recommend that to you as well. And then Francoise, I think you were just saying as we were coming into this meeting that you have done even some more work since this time.
Yes, what happened during this plenary is that I got in touch. I participated in the meeting, which was a discussion of to prepare an RDA ambassador interest group. And it's clear that these people are very important to bring the disciplinary point of view, and it's particularly important for understanding what research outputs can be. And so they are preparing their charter, and I was able to say a few words about their possible usefulness for our group. And so something will be written in the charter about that, I guess. And I also participated in another session of a group which is preparing a charter about understanding and measuring the uptake of digital research infrastructure. And the same thing, there will be something written in the group. I was invited to give a lightning talk about their possible usefulness for evaluation. And so the topic will be somewhere in their charter also. So, and liaison, it's important because it establishes the liaison with these two groups at their very start or before they start. And these are important stakeholders within RDA for for the work we have to do on evaluation of research.
Great. Thank you very much for those connections and for that update. Really appreciate it. Laura, well, for everyone, but I see Laura's question in chat. So before we move on to the next section of this session, I want to open up the floor for any questions on just like the general welcome and overview of what the group's been doing and things like that. But since we have Laura's question, do you mind taking the mic and talking a little bit more about what your question is there, Laura?
Yeah, and so this is just, I'm just trying to come up with there's different words that people use to describe different things. And so, you know, it kind of came up when we talked about interoperability and the idea and capability of sharing information between platforms because you have certain data fields that allow you to do that. And more I hear people talking about fair images being another way of saying AI ready. And I'm just curious, like, is that kind of becoming, my dogs are going crazy. Is that becoming common parlance? Do other people hear that? Is that appropriate way of describing fair? I'm just curious. And I think the same thing for evaluation, because one of the big challenges with any kind of evaluation is actually finding your data and finding the software. And so if you have something that's quote unquote AI ready / fair, whatever that is, that it may become more possible to actually include those outputs in an evaluation program.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that. And in terms of what are the intersections between something as AI ready versus fair? I think for me and my understanding, which of course could be limited about what we are meaning when we say AI ready, that mainly to me sounds like the I in fair, that it's interoperable. It doesn't necessarily fulfill, you know, what has been given out in terms of findability or accessibility, or even necessarily reusability. When it comes to that, it's primarily, you know, thinking about the interoperability, the nature of that interoperability and how well it can be incorporated into a training set for what we're looking at as AI.
Got it. Thank you.
Sonia,
Yes,
yeah. Oh, sorry, Francoise?
Yes, I think that the fair data is well tended and it has proper metadata. More generally, I think it helps AI to work properly when things are well described because it comes with the right keywords and so on. So it's also somewhere reusability and the metadata linked to reusability. I guess they can be useful for AI also to get results which are less fuzzy in a sense.
Thank you for that, Francoise. Sanyang.
Yeah, I was actually sorry I missed the beginning part because I had to close the door. Someone just walked in. So you know, when I think about AI, I consider it like a machine action ability because we're trying to make a lot of things machine actionable, like, DMSP and all that stuff. So if you have a good metadata, if you follow the fair data principles and all, wouldn't that be AI ready? Is there something particular we have to consider to make data AI ready?
Oh, well, you're absolutely right, Sun Young. And I guess what I was trying to express is a fair is more than AI ready, right? So if something is fair, and I think this is what Francois was saying as well, if something is fair in terms of those original principles, which were all about machine
Right.
actionability, right? If you have data that are truly fair, then those data are probably AI ready
Right.
as well. However, just because something is AI ready doesn't necessarily mean that it's fair, right?
Okay, got
I
it.
see. So fair is more inclusive. That's it.
Yeah, it goes beyond just AI ready. AI
Right.
ready, I would, to my understanding, which may not be correct and may
No,
be
I agree
limited,
with you. It's just
right? Yeah.
right, because we, the whole this is my first time, so I learned a lot, and it's truly global. So in
Mhm.
terms of what we are doing in open science and research data management, so it's if you go fair is like a global initiative. So if you make the data fair, findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable, then I don't think AI will have any issue. So it is more inclusive and more collective in a way. So it just
Mhm.
um
Yes.
yeah.
When one could say that AI readiness of data is a necessary but insufficient to meet fair fair standards.
Okay.
As a kind, maybe a way to think about that.
That's it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions about kind of like the group and its overview before we move into the work that we've been doing around the RDA role in evaluation of research landscape? Brilliant, lovely. All right. So RDA and its role in this very large, complex, global space of evaluation of research. So when we first started about this, thinking about this as a group, creating this charter, determining community needs in the place, one of the first things we wanted to be able to do was just within RDA itself, gain an understanding of what are all of the activities, the groups, going on in RDA that are relevant to this idea of research evaluation and assessment. And I think one of the things that we were just talking about, that in order to be able to do things like automated tracking and finding and recognition of outputs, they often really do need to be fair. So thinking about all of the ways that those efforts across RDA connect into each other and connect into this space of evaluation of research is really important, so that we can truly create this space where we can have where we can have discussions, where we can identify solutions that are practical and implementable. So this is the first area that we started working on, and Francois has been doing some really amazing work putting all of this together and thinking about it. And we really did this from the idea of having some specific outcomes for all of the work that's gone into it. We wanted to first of all think about a typology of what are the things that are actually relevant to thinking about a recreation of that evaluation of research space. And then to be able to have what we've come up with be included in that RDA front page, once the site's doing much better, that collection of documents around, when RDA says it provides value to these different stakeholder type groups, to be able to include those elements for evaluation of research that are of interest, that are of relevance to each of these groups in those as well. So thinking of these so that we can really catapult this very important space around our scholarly ecosystem into these conversations more apparently and more visibly. So that's, that was really top of our mind for what we wanted this document to be able to do. So thinking about that typology of activities that are relevant to the evaluation of research, we wanted to think about, well, what are the obvious things, right? We all know evaluation, it must have metrics. So who's looking at metrics? What do those look like, right? And so it's like, what are the efforts that are connected to things like make data count, a citation, tracking, those types of things? What are the criteria that are associated with those potential metrics? Again, trying to think accurately about who are the actual stakeholders within the space of evaluating research, and what does it mean to be represented in that conversation? What are the interests that are being represented and should be represented here? And how are they represented within RDA so that they can be included? Getting a better grasp of the honestly overwhelming variety of what those research outputs might be and what their respective properties are in addition, because I think it's one thing to say, yes, it's data and software, but as Laura already pointed out, so what's in that very large pool of potential things, right? Are we talking about protocols? Are we talking about these, so many different types of possible research outputs? And then within that, what are the disciplinary aspects, whether it comes to how evaluation and assessment are managed within a particular discipline, whether it's thinking about what are the outputs that are relevant to that discipline. Are there aspects of a specific type of output that are relevant to one discipline but are less prominent to another discipline, and how do we better understand those things? So really looking at groups within RDA that have activities that support and contribute to these different facets of that evaluation of research system. So really that typology aspect of it was a really big part. And so within that space of thinking about metrics and criteria, certainly the groups that we identified in that place, in those spaces, were quite obviously the data usage and metrics working group in there, as well as the sharing rewards and credit group that we already mentioned. And one of, some of the groups that are in discussion and development and could be added are things like understanding and capturing the usage of digital research infrastructure itself. So thinking about how infrastructure figures within that space again. And as we're going through this, perhaps something will pop into your mind about, oh, wait, I know this RDA group and it definitely has a part in this space as well. And if that occurs to you, I encourage you to go to the notes document. There is a table there. Take a look at that table and add your thought in that space. In just a second, I will pop the link to the exact place in the document into chat where you can do that. So go ahead and put other groups of interest, because I can totally spell groups. Go ahead and add them there in the notes document.
And you can also go to the document we have prepared as a draft and put your comments in it. So I think the link is in the note document also.
Yes, it is.
You are very welcome to add your comments to the document. We will go back to that later, but it's worth saying also.
There you go. All the things. So in that space of metrics and criteria, these are the few groups that we had included at this point in that space as we were doing an overview. Moving on to the stakeholders, like I mentioned before, this one of the things that the interest group has is this stakeholders forum, where again, we really want to create that platform, that space where people can come and connect with each other around these efforts for evaluating research. And thinking about who in RDA already working in this area, we immediately identified, perhaps to no one's surprise, the Funders Forum. Since they definitely have a stake in thinking about how research is being evaluated, as well as the organizational and regional assembly, really turning to appreciate how evaluation can be not just discipline-based, but also regionally based, because different regions, different types of organizations are going to have slightly, different experiences in approaching what their evaluation has looked like, what their procedures for assessment have looked like. And while there's often kind of general-ish agreement about how research is evaluated and researchers are evaluated, we wouldn't need this group nearly as much if it was a lot more standardized, or there was a lot more sharing around this idea of what evaluation consists of. We also wanted to include early career and engagement interest group, because that is a certain class of experiences. It's a very important voice of, what's happening right now. What are the experiences right now of being evaluated, right? As opposed to perhaps some who are more advanced in their careers and where systems or experiences have changed over the years. And then also looking at, those groups that are focused on policy and their implementation to include some of the other relevant stakeholders within this discussion space. When we're thinking about possible research outputs and how those are represented across RDA, definitely anyone dealing with the software source code want to hear about that as a type of research output that needs to be included in evaluation of research. Physical samples, as well as another really interesting aspect of like how does this work into evaluation of research, right? Those whole libraries of ice core samples and tree rings and all of the other different physical samples that are embodiments of data in a way, right? And those types of things. And yes, Lori, data management plans as well. And I think that's, an important point with the groups that are working on machine actionable data management plans, because a part of that machine actionability is that findability aspect of it, right? Being able to identify them and also add them to that overall portfolio of research work. And then thinking about those quality indicators for research outputs and how those might be assessed. We have the FAIR Data Maturity Model Working Group, as well as the Research Software Working Group. Moving into disciplinary aspects, there are a number of communities of practice, and we see even more of those developing within particular areas of study. And those are really important. And I think Francoise also mentioned going to the ambassadors and champions interest group in that space as well. So, yeah, I heard a squeak.
Yes, there is if you want to see the list of groups which are in support to the change in the way research is done, in the document, there is a long list of groups which act in support, including DMPs and a number of the others. So you can also think about adding groups if we missed some. But there is a big wealth in the RDA of groups. Of course, it's at the core of our activity. So there is no long list in the slides, but the long list is in the document.
We didn't want to exhaust you right now. Save the exhaustion for when you review the document with the exhaustive list. So we're really looking to, part of the intention of the session is to raise awareness that this draft document exists, to pique your interest, to get you interested enough to go check out that draft document, see if that long list that Francoise mentioned does in fact include the group that you are thinking of. And if not, please, like we said before, add that comment, raise awareness for that group in the document so that we can go forward with that. Definitely. Is there anything else that you wanted to say about that specific document, Francoise? Did we want to share it at all to walk people through it, or we're good? We're good. Okay, take a pause here. I cannot hear you, Francoise.
Yes, I can try to get the link here.
Oh, I have the
not
link
sure.
already in chat.
You have a link in chat, yes.
Yeah.
Just to show the document so people see that it exists really. Zut, I have an issue because Google is worrying me. So I will just show you the document. It's organized along the lines which were in the slide. And you see there are comments from colleagues already. And so there is an introduction and then the list of categories we have identified, and then a paragraph for each category. And the long list here of the groups which are in support to open science and open research and data sharing. And so there are the groups which are here in support to researchers and many other aspects, including active data management plans. And the idea is to make sure that these groups are aware that of what they can do to support researchers to adapt to a new way of with which their research will be evaluated if we succeed in having an evolution. So I really encourage you to look at the document, and you see some of our colleagues have put comments, and please, you're very welcome to do it also.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Francoise. Emma, did you want to say anything about this? I want to make sure there's space. You're good? Okay. Any other questions about, oh, you unmuted? I missed you. No, you're good. Okay. Sun Yang, please.
Yeah, it's not a question if you don't mind me sharing, my
Please.
thoughts. I'm a data librarian and also curate data for institutional data repository. And I've been dealing with a lot of data manager sharing plans, which is mandated by NIH DMS policy. So looking at from the perspective of data life cycle. So, a lot of funders are starting to, some of them already started, I'm not so familiar with the other countries, but I see the interest group about, DMS policy standardization. So I don't know if it applies to, global, all the countries. So who goes to the interest group? Is it really policymakers or, but let's assume that actually the policymakers, either from funders, go to their thing and then try to standardize the elements they are requiring in data management sharing plan, because that's the first step. So if researchers start thinking about how they're going to manage their data, how they're going to share data, and deposit their data into a repository, that kind of takes care of a lot of fair data principles by sharing it. And then major component of fair data principle is, PIDs, precision unique identifiers and metadata. So there's a PID strategy group in RDA, and I was kind of surprised to, find out the data evaluation data review group didn't talk much about fair data principles. They did talk about criteria and everything, but it's all kind of incorporated. It'll be captured if you make your data fair, but they didn't really put it in that perspective. I know Go Fair is a global initiative, and there's a separate group for peace strategy, and also that'd be, and peace are also important to kind of make data set discoverable, machine actionable, DMSP and everything. And if you're trying to establish data metrics to see, what's been published, and also compliance part of the DMS, plan. So all these things are kind of connected together in a way. So I just want to kind of, share that with you and see what you think of it.
Yeah,
If I
I
can-
think,
sorry.
so please.
If I can say something, we had during the first session, we had one of the chairs of a PID group, interest group of the RDA, and it says that for the moment they are not, it's just a tool, the PID. It's not what will be evaluated. It's part of the fair landscape. And he was there to get informed. Chris Brown, if you remember, he said that he was in the room to be informed, and that they know they have to think about these kind of things. So
Yeah, I think you're right about that, Francoise, and Sun Young, to your point, fair data is a large area, right? And within RDA, and looking at the point, the principles, the goals of RDA and how it works, it's acknowledging how really overwhelming the space can be. And with the working groups and interest groups, breaking it down into those bite-sized pieces that we can do something about. And within RDA, one of the constant efforts is, how do we effectively connect these groups so that yes, we continue to recognize that this piece and this piece and this piece all need to talk to each other and work together. And that's why RDA exists, is to create that space of holding where these people can bump into each other and be on multiple groups, to be like, oh, right, we should be talking to those people, and this is how we can make that conversation happen. So I think you're absolutely right to recognize the interconnectedness of all of these efforts. And that is one of the intents of this group, is to support that interconnectedness with the perspective of evaluation of research.
And if you take the example of the Helmholtz, the task force of the Helmholtz Association, they really have FAIR at the core of what they think when they think about criteria, because they explained that they used the FAIR data maturity model from the RDA about data, and FAIR for research software from the RDA also, to think about the criteria. It's a work being done, but they have these two RDA recommendations within the thoughts they give to criteria about evaluation of data and software. So really, FAIR is in the landscape. It's not a question. I think everybody understands that. Yes, thank you for the note.
Yeah, very much. And to something you previously mentioned, Sun Young, about the data policy standardization and implementation interest group. Have you looked at that group at all, or are you just asking it?
Actually,
Okay.
it
So
was
I think
a
it's
little
something
overwhelming, because this is my first time.
No,
doing
it's
RDA.
completely overwhelming. There's no need to apologize. That is an utterly true and accurate experience, to be moderately overwhelmed. So no worries there. I too, when I first saw the title of this group, misapprehended what it meant. It is actually very narrowly focused initially on journal policies and data sharing policies by journals. And their first output was on data availability statements and developing more standardized policies for journals around data availability statements, right? As one of those pieces, which is so important, but is still a smaller piece of the overall landscape.
Well, I saw some names from like a NIH ODSS as a participant. I thought maybe they would go to that group, because I didn't really know the details of what that group does. I mean, there was some talk about, like a gigabyte, like a data availability statement, what they're looking for. Well, there was a publication about 12 best practices in,
Yep.
data management. So one of them is, making data set available by depositing into repository, and they take care of all the aspects of fair data principles and issue, DOI as a PIT. So that's good. But I was really curious how funders, will come to an agreement in terms of a standardization, what element? Like we are talking about standards for data management plan. That alone is a huge project.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Yeah. No, and I think your point is well taken. This is why one of the groups that RDA hosts is the Funders Forum, and the fact that the funders have their own interest group as well is that it's a continual conversation. But just, and sorry for others, but just as you know, Sun Young, within even the US context, we can't even come up with a national standardization, right? So the
Right.
whole, hey, we should have global standardization is a bit out there. But the fact that we are coming together to have these conversations is a first hopeful step into some of these in some of these directions.
Right. The other thing about that is like a compliance part. So they'll be interested in what outputs are coming out from the data management sharing plan. Once approved, it becomes the terms and conditions of the work. So by making DMS plan machine actionable in incorporating kids and all, it'll make it a lot easier to kind of track all the activities coming out of DMSP, for example.
Yeah, absolutely, it would.
Data
And
set
that's what that.
catalog, exactly. So I thought funders would be interested in, data metrics and all this stuff.
Oh, they are among the many other things that they're interested in. But bandwidth is a challenge for us all. All right.
Yes,
Thank you for that.
I'm-
Yep.
Sorry, just to tell you, when we met at the plenary, which was in Göteborg last northern spring, we were invited as a group to talk to the Founders Forum because they are interested in these evaluation things. So there is a liaison. They know we are here, and it's really part of the RDA spirit that the funders are among the stakeholders.
Yep. Yeah. Yes. There are only so many funders to go around. So thank you very much for that discussion. And I'd like to move us now into some of the other work that we wanted to share with you from the group, which is one of the major global initiatives in this space is COARA. And so along with mapping the RDA groups that have relevance to and stakeholders in this space of evaluation, we also wanted to take a look at the COARA working groups and looking at, what does this kind of, what might this type of mapping mean for RDA and our, RDA's role in the evaluation of research space. So this was from one of the presentations that we have. COARA is part of our stakeholder. We have representatives from COARA in our stakeholder forum. And this is from the presentation that Ava gave to us, to the group around, what are the various working groups and where might efforts within RDA combine and support, work with, collaborate the work that's being done by COARA in these particular working groups. So that's a kind of an overview of what exists. And from that conversation, we identified a number of COARA working groups that were relevant to the RDA activities. Especially like some of the obvious ones are things that we've already talked about, right? Groups within the RDA that are quite similar, such as the early and mid-career researchers, looking at, what are those responsible metrics and indicators. So really trying to create this space of not duplicating effort, of trying to take advantage of work that has already been done, of thinking that has already gone forward in some of these areas and can be incorporated into the work that Kawara is doing. And you know, both teams can benefit from this. In addition to those, there were also the ethics and research integrity policy, which has some really nice crossovers with the group in RDA around artificial intelligence and data visitation, which I think touches a little bit, Laura, on some of the points that you were raising earlier about how does FAIR and AI, how do they interact with each other, and thinking about that. And then we also have this idea about research assessment systems within Kawara. Kawara is focusing on the biomedical disciplines, and we have this group from the biosciences and health community of practice thinking about fairness in health data and health research, which might intersect, Sun Young, with some of your interests around the NIH data management and sharing plans as well. So just something to note there. So again, you know, within these mappings, we have a section in the notes document that lists out some of these mappings. So I encourage you to take a quick look over on that screen if there's anything that occurs to you to add to what other people have put in there from previous sessions. And, you know, I'd like to, at this point in time, kind of, you know, open it up for, you know, more thoughts about where we might have intersections, not just with Kawara, but with other efforts external to the RDA that are occurring in these spaces and how they might interact to the RDA activities. I'll give you a chance to glance back and forth between the documents.
Hey, Amy, I
Yeah,
lost
it'd be
slide.
hard to make a comment without reading the whole document.
Yeah,
to
I
be
know.
honest.
Yeah, absolutely understand. I'm sorry, Laura, you were saying?
I lost the slides. I don't know
Oh.
if you're still displaying them, but
I can get you I can get you the slides back.
awesome.
Try this.
It might be helpful to make a list of other relevant organizations working in a similar fashion and see
Funny, you should
where there
mention
might be,
that.
overlap, right?
We
Because
have one of those lists in the charge, actually.
Oh, awesome.
So
Great.
yeah, absolutely. So yes, and so, you know, thinking about so we do have that list in the charge. So you know, take a look at that definitely. And you know, if there are just some that you're like, aha, they should definitely be thinking about these people, just go ahead and put it in the notes right now, and you know, we'll go ahead and do the cross check and any deduplication that's necessary. But really appreciate, you know, extending our wisdom by your sharing yours with us around what efforts are out there, because acknowledging that there are so many.
Right. The only thing that kind of, jumped out of this whole meeting is there's a need for crosstalk between the working groups and interest groups because I'm sure it's overwhelming, to be honest, because we are all busy with all the other stuff. This is all voluntary. But if there's a way to, I know there's a facilitator, for example, by Tiger. And I don't know if they only work on particular, work group, for example. But if there's a maybe designated facilitator to facilitate, interaction between different interest group, work group, and make them aware, what each other is doing, and by integrating that would be good.
Yeah,
Yes.
I see. Oh, go ahead,
Sorry.
Francoise.
I have a comment on that. Last year it was the 10th anniversary of the RDA, and there was a long list of events which were called cross-fertilization workshops. And this was really to put the groups working on subjects which are nearby, to talk together and think together which are the challenges ahead of us, what RDA can bring, and what external endeavors can bring. So there is a long list of this, and I think on the current website, you can find a link, and when the website will be cleaned and fully operational again, there is a link to what happened. Each of these workshops gave rise to a summary, and I think you will be interested to see that, because it's exactly what you are describing, to have the groups together and think about the future, the challenges, the future, and the external endeavors. And so I think you will like this.
Sounds great.
For what
There's so much to
want
learn.
see. So it was
There's so many.
Yeah.
it's a cross-fertilization workshops of the 10th anniversary, and I think there were 10 or 12 of them.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thanks for the history and reference. I appreciate
Yeah, and I think, you know, in addition to those cross-fertilization groups, this is a lovely segue, so thank you for this, Sun Young. Also within this particular interest group, I've mentioned a couple times that we have that stakeholder forum, where one subset of that are representatives from the RDA groups that have been identified as holding a piece of this evaluation of research ecosystem. Oh, thank you for that link, Emma. Definitely appreciate that. So we have that, you know, that idea of the stakeholder forum, and one of the things we really want to do as a, you know, as part of this interest group between this plenary and the next plenary, in September, October. I don't know. It seems so
November.
close. November. Oh my goodness, that's so much better. in November, between now and then, is to schedule more regularly both those stakeholder forum meetings to you know, create those opportunities for cross conversation between the RDA groups as well as the external efforts, in addition to having more regular interest group meetings that we're able to talk about the different initiatives and how they're interacting with COARA. So that's a great segue into, you know, what might be our possible areas of activity for the future. And it would be great to hear other people's more ideas around, you know, beyond those meetings, what we would be interested in accomplishing as outcomes of those meetings. Whether it's thinking about how we can follow up. Thanks, Laura. Follow up with COARA on those working groups and the mapping, and really bring that to an area of better understanding and more comprehensive collaboration between, you know, those efforts. But also thinking about, you know, what are the other things that we might as a group come up with as a, you know, working group type activity. Because to your question, Sun Young, about, so what does Tiger do? And we have both the Tiger from the EU as well as Tigress from the US, right?
Yeah.
So there are now these two potential areas of support, but they, for the most part, they are both very much focused on actual outputs that might be generated more from a working group. So what we had put forward a proposal and a revised proposal around developing a collection of use cases, but weren't able to get the support for that. So really, you know, thinking about going back to the drawing board and doing some more brainstorming and development work about what would be an output that we could get some support around that would be useful to the community that's focusing on research evaluation, and that we could get some support from Tiger on.
Right. I attended a session, the Tiger and Tigress, and then you know, sounds like a Tigress work kind of independently. They will get input from Tiger, but it's a regional Tiger in a way.
Oh yes, absolutely. The Tigress is a US effort
focus
all
and
by itself, and Tiger is an EU effort all by, you know,
and
right?
And Tiger is more overall, and then sounds like they might support more regional Tiger program, like the US as an example. So they might start like a, you know, Oceania, Asian or some other countries in a way. And then they do have their own kind of way of doing things or even funding mechanism. Tiger offers up to 60K or something, but Tigress is not eligible to ask for their funding. So it's funded by different organism in a way.
Yes, it absolutely is. It's not even in a way, it absolutely
Right.
straight up is.
But
Tiger is an EU funded project.
right. But I think they support all the RDA members or regions. Right.
If you have
Tigress
an
is the
EU, yeah, if you have an EU member as like a co-chair and things like that, yeah.
I thought they support the entire RDA members, not just EU.
Yes, they support all of the members, but it's an EU funded space. Well, the US funding doesn't work like that.
Well, and the challenge for me, I mean, this was a really good experience for me. I would love to participate, but the only reason I was able to participate because they offer virtual. Our library doesn't really support international conference, so it'd be hard to get funding to go. For example, if you go.
WashU used to support your attendance to RDA.
Well, I think I have to have a very strong reason to go
But
to international
we can
conference.
talk about that offline. I doubt that most of the other people are necessarily interested in the intricacies of US library funding. But thinking about the other possible areas of activity for this group for the future, coming kind of back to that about, thinking about what we can accomplish in this area. What are some things that, bring us closer to implementing something that the community would find useful in using as as a stepping stone to change and evolution or understanding this space for evaluating research.
I'll just say that I've been sort of looking through things and thinking, and I'm hard pressed to sort of come up with another sort of group to add, because the ones that I thought you sort of already covered. But I think that part of it maybe what you've already been thinking about the connection to Coara and the ability to maybe be sort of a unified voice between Coara and RDA, sort of channeling the related issues that are coming out of or under the scope of the various different RDA groups. And so I think that unified voice is something it seems like is sort of an embedded idea in here. And I think that is valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that, Katie. I appreciate that. Yeah.
I have a logistic question. So since it's a global organization, we are all over the world, different time zone, and also, how do you organize this, like a working group meeting and stuff? It'd be all virtual, but who organizes and
someone wakes up early or someone goes to bed late or both, depending on the time.
Well,
It's
a lot
midnight.
of sessions I wanted to attend was at 2 a.m. So
It's it's
Our
1
local
a.m.
time.
for me. It's 1 a.m. now for me. So I am with you. But usually we can have working groups. We also have an Indian co-chair. So we have to manage. And we manage to meet. It's not the point.
Got you. Yeah. I would definitely, try to make it if we have a time that works for everybody.
A time where works for everybody is a challenge. Sometimes we also hold two meetings, or we switch off times, so it's very convenient for like
Right.
3/4 of the people one time, and very convenient and convenient-ish for 3/4 of a different 3/4 of the people a different time. And so it's simply acknowledging that this is part of the challenge of a global organization,
Right.
is that we are not all on the same clock.
Yes. If I may, about his comment about Coara, I think one of the points is that we are a community, and Coara is a community of organizations. And so the idea is to bring the voice of RDA community to Coara. And I think they agree with that. It's the liaison is well established. But the wealth of the RDA is its people, of course.
Mhm.
And they are all, they have to deal with their own evaluation, and it's not always easy. I think most of us know that. And so it's good that their voice can be heard from an organization gathering organizations.
Yeah, I think that's thank you for that point, Francoise. And you know, that again is one of the motivations behind this particular interest group is to create a space that, you know, honors, recognizes, and invites in all, you know, all of these voices, this variety of diverse voices in that conversation of the evaluation of research, and create a space that can productively host them to some defined goal. You know, whether that first step in that goal is, first of all, say, okay, when we say evaluation of research, what are the systems that we're talking about? What's going on right now? What do we want to see for the future? Which I think is a little bit where we are right now, is just say, okay, who are the stakeholders in this space? Who should be involved in the conversations? And you know, with the RDA groups, there's that other aspect of, you know, what are the tools that we need to that we know we're going to need to make this kind of research evaluation possible. And how do we bring these people into conversation with each other so that there is a shared awareness that they're not that it's not just like developing the coolest PID system, but also what are the different uses that PID system might be put to, and so should be designed with some thought to facilitating that use as well. I'd like to invite you to continue to think about this really important area. As we all know, you know, and I've said multiple times, it's like, well, you know, researchers are going to share their data probably when they're incentivized to share their data. And one piece of that overall incentivization is to have data sets and software and research outputs actually take a position within what we understand as promotion and tenure or other evaluative processes for our researchers on a global scale across the global community, because researchers are global. So really, you know, having this group as the place to start making steps in that area. You know, we've identified the area that we have to have data software evaluated as part of research. Great, we've said it a lot. How are we going to do that? And that's what this group is to, you know, act as a launch pad, as that meeting place for us. Like, okay, we know we have to do this. How are we going to go forward? So please continue to think about what are the different elements, what are the different facets, what are the perspectives and stakeholders that should be included in this conversation. It's still, you know, early days as we get these things rolling, and I invite you as well to, you know, attend some of the meetings that we will be setting up around, you know, hearing from different RDA groups as well as external groups, you know, in this space, you know, shared efforts across research evaluation and assessment. And, you know, thinking about, you know, from your perspectives and experiences, what would you find useful? What are the efforts that you see? What are the tools that you're seeing, and how might they be deployed in this space for not just, you know, I think one of my underlying goals within this group is that we don't end up in the same place that we find ourselves with articles and how they're used in evaluating research, right? We want this to be a richer, more nuanced, and more equitable system that we develop around this new space of research evaluation. And that's one of the underlying thrusts of this group as well. So continuing to think in this area. Were there any other kind of next steps or thoughts or ideas that people wanted to share? Myra, please.
Oh, hi, everyone. I just wanted to say something about, I thought there was a working group set up by CoData related to evaluation. I tried to search for the title, but I can't find it. But I thought they had done some interesting work on the issue of equity in evaluation. So if I can, yeah, I'll just go back to my documents, muddle through all my emails. So if I can find it, I'll send it to you.
Oh, that would be lovely. Thank you. Definitely. Definitely appreciate that. Other thoughts in this space?
There's a make data count is making an effort
Yep.
to kind of keep track of this research output coming out. Is
Yep.
there any like a European equivalent of that, or is data count is leading the global effort in a way?
I believe Make Data Count is considered a global effort.
That's true.
Yes, and they are part of
Yeah.
COARA, because
Yep.
we have been put in touch at COARA, between us and COARA. It was the start of not the start of the discussion, but we have been contacted by COARA to put together something with people who are from Make Data Count, who are also part of the group from the RDA, which is the data usage metrics, as far as I know. So I think that they are part of RDA and also involved in COARA. So it's US and they have a global reach, basically, because they
Yeah.
do something useful.
So Elsevier has a data monitor. So they keep track of all the research outputs per institution or per repository. So that's kind of similar to Make Data Count in a way, but I mean, Elsevier is a European organization, so I don't know if they work close together. We all have this like individual kind of in parallel effort in a way. I don't know if they talk to each other, if there's any effort in kind of harmonizing or standardizing. I know one is for profit, so they might not.
There is a group in COARA which is called Towards Open Infrastructures for Responsible Research Assessment. And we discussed this during the interest group, the pre-plenary interest group meeting, and they are looking at open infrastructures allowing to do this kind of measurements.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's part of a landscape to think about how to do that.
That'd
Yeah.
be great.
Yeah, and I
And
think that goes.
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, I think that focus on open infrastructures really goes back to kind of what we were, we opened the session with, keeping in mind like what are the 6 guiding principles of RDA, as we're thinking really nonprofit, technology neutral, and a large part of that is this idea of openness around the infrastructures that are created or that are being used.
So you will see also among the comments to the RDA role in the landscape, one of our colleagues is worried by criteria, numerical criteria, quantitative criteria. I am also, because we know what it can give if we think about publications. But it's also true that it's difficult to live without criteria. So it's part of a discussion.
Yeah,
Maybe.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think, being worried about numerical criteria is, I wonder if it's kind of a shorthand, an abbreviation for saying to be wary of reductive criteria, because oftentimes numerical criteria are reductive. So it's thinking about, how do we create criteria that are usable, and at the same time not reductive the way articles have been, and remain equitable in thinking about our systems of scholarship and research. So it's rather than avoiding, it's not so much avoiding numeric criteria as avoiding reductive criteria or overly reductive criteria, since criteria by their very nature are reductive. But that's a whole philosophical thing. We only have 15 minutes left. So
I think we can decide that we let you read the document and put your comments in the document. But you are of course welcome if you have additional comments.
yes, absolutely.
Yes, we have a point is please join the group. The website is not
It's totally
finished.
working. It's not finished, but
but
it works well enough that you can join the group.
yes, so you go to the group page. Maybe we can find the group page, and you have to be logged in with your RDA credentials, and there is a green button which says join group, and if you click on that, you will join the group. I promise it works. So we are really glad if you decide to be with us in this complex endeavor. We need your brains and expertise.
So if you join, this is an interest group or working group?
It's
Interest
an interest group.
Interest group. Then you'll be added to the communication list and then, participate. Is that how it works?
Exactly. And just Sun Young, I know you've said a couple times that this is your introduction to RDA. So just kind of like community norms, it's perfectly acceptable to lurk on any number of groups if you're interested in just like sensing what's going on with that group without necessarily being intensively hands-on.
Gotcha. So we can, join the group and kind of be informed about what each group does. And then if I want to really dive in, then join the working group. Is that how it works?
So the difference between interest group and working group has more to do with what their intentions are. So an interest group a working group is structured to exist for 18 months to 2 years, with the expectation that by the time that time point is reached, there is a real output at the end of it, whether it's a document or a procedure or something, right? It is designed to have an output, a product at the end of it. While an interest group is structured more as this one is around an issue, an interest group may kind of bud off task forces or working groups that are associated with it, right? So, you might choose to hang out with any number of interest groups or working groups, and then based on what the activities are that are going on, choose to invest or participate more intensively. If you feel that it's an area that your institution is interested in and can benefit more, and you really want your institution's perspective in there, or it's an area of interest for you or something that you have particular expertise on, and base your commitment and contributions on that.
Sounds
and
good.
I don't know, so many other people here are experienced with RDA as well. Is there anything that you would add to that?
My point, I have one point, which is it's completely normal to find that the first plenary is difficult. Everybody says that. In France, we have meetings with French participants, and when we do the debrief, it's very clear. They all say it's difficult the first time. The second time, it's easier. And after that, it's okay. But it remains very rich. So it's completely normal to find that there are too many things, and the vocabulary, you have to understand what people are discussing and so on. So it's a message we get from, and after they participated in the second plenary, they say it was worth the effort. I can tell you. This is the message we get from the real people.
No, this was a great experience. I really get to see what RDA is about. I'm actively involved in RDA, which is a US, version. But this is more global, and it was a little challenging to attend the sessions I'm interested because of time difference and all. And then thankfully they have a repeat section, but sometimes they offer the things I'm interested in at the same time. So it was very difficult. I have a lot to kind of catch up after this, watching the video recordings and all. But I'm just worried that, I wish in the future, if they actually offer a hybrid version, it'd be easier for me to attend. But if it's always in person, offered internationally, it'd be a little challenging for me to attend every single one of them. So that's
So just as a thing for that, Sun Young, it's been the practice of RDA, I want to say since before the pandemic, to try to support hybrid attendance and participation at plenaries, just because, just acknowledging the challenge of being the global organization. And they actually do it at quite a bit of cost for the plenaries,
yeah.
because
It's
it
very
takes quite a bit to
expensive, yeah.
support the hybrid thing, but it is something that the organization as a whole is dedicated to, recognizing that if we truly want RDA to be positioned as a global organization fully, that it has to acknowledge, facilitate, and reduce barriers to participation. And one of those ways is through, continuing to support hybrid plenaries and activities. So this way we're better able to, there are all sorts of institutions in all parts of the world that are like, yeah, good luck getting money to go to an international thing,
Oh,
right?
I know.
So, yeah.
It's better to participate in person. First of all, time, you are in that time zone, so you don't have to worry about this thing, and you get to interact with the people. Certain things are better to discuss in person than virtually. But yeah, it is challenging because not every institution supports international travel. It's much more expensive. They always push for, domestic version of something equivalent. So
Yeah, there isn't really. Well, what I can say is, for regardless of where you are, RDA does move around the globe, and it usually comes to the Americas, I want to say every third or fourth plenary. So the next
okay.
plenary is in Costa Rica. So it's quasi international for the US.
And closer, a little closer.
I still think Costa Rica is closer to me than California, to be perfectly honest. But
I see.
so, but it does travel around, again, in recognition of those challenges, and it usually bounces back and forth between like North America and Europe and another place in the world.
Gotcha. Sounds good. Thank you.
Anything else? Well, thank you again.
Thank you for bringing us together.
Yeah, our pleasure. It was lovely to see you, and it was great to hear from each of you. I'm kind of glad we had such a small group, so we were able to talk a little bit more. It makes it a little bit more personal. I hope you have a great rest of whatever time you're spending awake, and if you're not, I hope you have good rest.
10 minutes.
Thank you so much.